Welcome back and thanks for staying on. The local municipalities of Ditsobotla, Dumisane and Mfuleni, as well as the Kareeberg in the northwest Gauteng and northern Cape, have indicated that workers will receive their salaries late this month. The Municipal Workers Union, Samwu, has voiced concern over what it terms a trend where workers are not paid on time. We're joined now by the General Secretary of Samwu, Dumisane Magagula. Magagula, good evening and thank you very much for your time. You're saying a trend is beginning to emerge that is concerning. What is happening?
Thank you very much, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers. Lomkuba is something that happens in the municipality for the past 8 to 10 years now. Every time that they have depleted the equitable shares, we get this situation. This is what happened at the end of January towards mid-February, where we had to intervene in a few municipalities because municipalities were waiting for equitable shares. Now they're due for equitable shares at the beginning of June, and they don't have money to pay salaries because corruption goes unabated and municipalities are not properly funded by National Treasury.
Yeah. Now you're faulting the funding model. I mean, do you have reason to believe that if they are given more in terms of their equitable share, things will be different? I mean, if there's corruption, corruption will generally even take the more that we are going to put in.
There are a few things that should be done to take municipalities out of this situation. First of all, municipalities have to be enabled to collect revenue. It's very important. But with the dismal management in municipalities, they're not able to collect revenue. That was the situation in Ditsobotla when we went there. The municipality had not collected revenue for over 6 months because they don't have proper management. For municipalities to get out of this challenge, they also need to deal with corruption. But it's a fact that you have quite a number of municipalities that are underfunded because the funding model does not speak to the situations in municipalities, especially those municipalities who are in rural areas without industry, and you still rely on the number of population. The population will never grow in those areas because everyone moves to urban areas. So as a result, if your funding model still relies on number of population, we'll never get out of this situation.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, barring Mfuleni and the challenges that are there and which are known and some unknown, if you look at the other municipalities, Ditsobotla, Lekwatema, Ngakamudiri and so on and so forth, and Kareeberg, what is common about them? What's the commonality?
And that list is growing. We now also have Case municipality in Northern Cape. We saw the notice this evening. What's common about these municipalities in all of them? They are under administration. They don't have senior managers in those municipalities. And you also have in those municipalities very low economy. There is no industry in those municipalities, or there's very little industry. Of course, except for Mfuleni, which is mostly marred by the poor administration that took over. Instead of dealing with debt, they increased debt in Mfuleni. However, mostly of these municipalities have the same challenge of low industry, high and very high unemployment. Yeah. But at the same time, you do have a few of the public works facilities which should be paying rates and taxes, but there is poor collection.
Is it poor thinking on the part of government? Is it a lack of creativity? What is behind, for example, the formula that is being used to say, well, there are, 2 million people here, so 2 million people means this is the allocation. There are 5 million here, 5 million people means this is the allocation. Is there a lack of creativity towards the nuances that you're saying the allocators would need to now begin to look into. For example, what is the economic activity of this area? What is the migration rate and so on and so forth?
The funding model is too conservative, does not take realities and the demographics of the areas into consideration. We can give a simple example. One of the ailing municipalities is Kopanong municipality in the Free State, which has 10 towns, a large expanse geographically, very low population, and absolutely no industry. And if you are going to say funding model would depend on the number of the population, it's not population that is economically viable. Mostly those people are people who are not working, and they fall under equitable share, but the calculation thereof does not assist. So you cannot use the same formula for a rural municipality and an urban municipality. That is where the challenge is. But we also see creeping into the local government sector is the coalitions and lack of leadership, lack of policy stability, and as a result, for example, in Disobotla, it's one of the municipalities that is a coalition municipality, and they're not able to employ senior managers. And as a result, there is mismanagement continuing, tenders are running amok, there is no control of corruption, there is no control, and there is no governance. And as a result, we end up with this situation where the municipality is not viable at all.
Yeah. So are you saying to us, even if, for example, there was no corruption and the whole allocation would have gone to where it was supposed to go to, it wouldn't be enough to sustain those municipalities?
Yes, it wouldn't be enough because the residents are not able to afford rates and taxes. And you need to come in with a model that says in those areas, National Treasury is able to set off the challenges that the municipalities would naturally face. How do they bring in industry, and how do they make sure that the municipality is able to deliver services that are well deserved by communities?
But Salga would say, and I don't know whether if this is law, and it's what the law says, that municipalities over and above the allocations have also got to come up with creative ways of raising revenue and stimulating those economies. So people in Ekurhuleni, for example, will tell you about things like the policy on erythropolis, and how that is aimed at stimulating the economy, bringing factories in, building malls and so on and so forth around the airport and having activity there as part of the way of raising that particular revenue. And municipalities are expected, or at least that leadership, to come up with such creative projects and initiatives that certainly raise over and above the expected allocation.
Oh yes, of course. Municipalities should be able to have the local economic development and make sure that they create a conducive environment for business to thrive in the different areas where municipalities have jurisdiction. However, when municipalities do that, they always take the shortcut and they believe that tendering system is a panacea. So you will find that there have been initiatives in different municipalities for local economic development, but where do tenders go? They go to their bodies and they do not bring in any economic development. You find municipalities where there are structures that were half built, there were business and economic transformation initiatives that went halfway. We can give an example of the SEZ in Maluti Apofum that went halfway. The government put in a lot of money to make sure that there is economic growth in that area. However, because of the challenges of corruption, Most of the SEZ was tenderized and it never bore any benefit to the community.
Yeah. And how does this happen, Magagula? I mean, it's the 25th today, and you're saying you're receiving those notices even today. Is that how it happens? They just tell you on the day you're supposed to be getting paid that, oh, by the way, you're only going to get paid in June?
That's how late it comes in. Some of the employees should have been paid by the 23rd of this month. Some should be paid today. Some employees should be paid on the 27th. But what's going to happen is on the day that you're supposed to receive your salary, as you begin to ask questions, you get a letter. And the letter is not going to pay your bills. So there isn't even a sufficient warning so that people make necessary arrangements. But we don't want to go and make necessary arrangements. People have worked, workers have given their labor, and workers must be paid. And we are making this call to provincial government and national government to intervene in these municipalities, enable municipalities to pay salaries. But it's not only about paying salaries, but fund service delivery. Towns are dirty. Sewer is not running properly. Fund service delivery so that those who are able to pay rates and taxes may pay. So it's not even a call about payment of salaries. This is a call about service delivery that should go to our communities.
Loud and clear, Magagula, we hear you. Thank you very much for coming on tonight and helping us in that conversation. That is the South African Municipal Workers Union General Secretary Dumisane Magagula.